I was standing at the edge of a rented beachfront cabana in Malibu, shading my eyes from the bright Pacific Ocean sun, when it finally hit me that my family's pecking order wasn't temporary. It was permanent. It was the second Saturday in June, and my extended family, my parents, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, and about half a dozen cousins, had coordinated flights from 15 different states to be there for my younger sister Chloe's gender reveal party, for her twins. My parents held nothing back. They booked first-class tickets for themselves, secured luxury oceanfront suites for the relatives, and hired a professional event planner who arranged an extravagant display. The grand finale involved a rented helicopter scattering biodegradable pink and blue confetti over the water, while a string quartet played pop covers on the sand. My father, who constantly complains about his mild arthritis, was practically sprinting through Newark Liberty International Airport to make his connecting flight. Meanwhile, my mother spent 3 weeks obsessing over the perfect pastel designer outfit that the photographer Chloe had specifically flown in from Los Angeles. I also attended, buying an economy ticket and booking a modest Airbnb a few miles inland because I still clung to the fading hope that if I kept showing up for them, one day they might actually show up for me. I spent that afternoon at the edge of the cabana, watching my parents dote on Chloe and her husband Greg, a man whose carefully practiced charm barely concealed his arrogance and his unstable finances. They had always viewed me as the practical, unremarkable child, the one who never demanded attention and therefore never required appeasement. When I first introduced them to my fiancé David, a quiet, observant man who wore unbranded earth-toned clothing and drove a modest 5-year-old sedan, they immediately dismissed him as painfully ordinary. In their eyes, he was a perfect match for my supposedly ordinary life. They asked him no meaningful questions. They showed zero curiosity about his background or profession. They treated him with the same polite condescension typically reserved for restaurant servers or hotel staff. Neither David nor I bothered correcting their assumptions. We understood that their indifference was merely a reflection of their own self-absorption. I didn't cry in that bridal suite on my wedding morning. I didn't throw my phone against the wall or collapse under the crushing weight of their rejection. The grief had already been processed years ago. What remained now was something far more valuable. A clear, hard, unshakable understanding. I finally realized that trying to earn unconditional love from people who treat affection like social currency was a battle I could never win. I smoothed the lace on my bodice, picked up my bouquet of white ranunculus, and walked out the door with absolute certainty. My birth family had voluntarily severed this tie, and they had no idea yet just how catastrophic their mistake truly was, especially regarding the man I was about to marry. The ceremony took place on the terrace gardens beneath sweeping willow trees. As I walked toward David, I deliberately kept my focus on him and on the friends and mentors who had actually bothered to show up. I refused to look at those empty chairs. The wedding was beautiful, intimate, and peaceful, completely free of the performative anxiety and manufactured drama that usually accompanied any event involving my parents or sister. What my family failed to understand through their own arrogance was that the quiet, unassuming man waiting for me at that altar was absolutely nothing like the mid-level corporate drone they had so casually dismissed. David is the founder and principal managing partner of Horizon Ventures, one of the most aggressive, well-capitalized technology investment firms operating on the entire East Coast. His personal net worth makes my parents' upper-middle-class posturing look laughably small and insignificant. The estate where we exchanged vows, which my mother had dismissively assumed was just a public park when I sent her the address, was actually David's private property. A 70-acre private sanctuary he maintains with understated but genuine pride. We had deliberately kept our financial lives private, not out of spite or deception, but as a necessary boundary. I knew exactly how my parents operated. Had they known David's true position, their indifference would have instantly transformed into an obsessive, relentless campaign to leverage his resources for their own social gain and to fund Chloe's endless demands. They would have paraded him at country club dinners, boasted about him to anyone who would listen, and constantly pressured us to finance their desired lifestyle upgrades. Meanwhile, Greg's troubled tech startup, the one he constantly bragged about at family gatherings to mask its operational problems, was bleeding capital at an alarming rate and urgently seeking a Series B investment to avoid total collapse. For 18 months, Greg had been desperately trying to secure a meeting with the executives at Horizon Ventures. He constantly complained about the layers of gatekeepers blocking his access to the firm's leadership, a group that deliberately avoided publicity and maintained a very low profile. He had no idea that the man he desperately needed to reach had been sitting quietly at our family dinner table for years, listening patiently while they complained about his future wife's career choices. When David slipped a platinum band onto my finger and we were officially pronounced husband and wife, I felt an enormous weight physically lift from my shoulders. The last tie had finally been cut after 3 decades of emotional exhaustion. The reception that followed was warm and genuinely joyful, filled with people who actually knew and valued us for who we truly were. We drank champagne, danced under the stars, and celebrated without any manufactured drama or obligation. Late that night, after the last guests had departed and the staff finished packing up, David and I stood together on the terrace overlooking the private lake. He held me close and gently asked if I was truly all right with how the day had gone, given the glaring absence of those who were supposed to be closest to me. I leaned into him, looked out over the grounds of our home, and spoke plainly from my heart. Their absence was the best gift they could have possibly given me, I said quietly. It removed any remaining guilt about what I'm going to do next. I had spent my entire life reshaping myself to fit my parents' expectations, minimizing my achievements to avoid eclipsing my sister, tolerating casual cruelties in the desperate hope that biology would eventually force affection. By refusing to make a simple 2-hour trip to see me marry the person I loved, they had finally made my place in their priorities unmistakably, permanently clear. 34 days after our wedding, Greg finally secured his long-awaited pitch meeting at Horizon Ventures. He walked into the glass-walled boardroom on the 40th floor of the firm's Manhattan headquarters, radiating confidence that his presentation would finally save his failing company. But when David closed the dossier, he calmly and methodically exposed every fatal flaw. An unsustainable burn rate, inflated user metrics, no proprietary technology whatsoever. Then he delivered the verdict. Horizon would not be investing a single dollar. Within 2 hours, my phone exploded with nonstop calls, frantic texts, and desperate voicemails from my entire family. I answered my mother's call while sitting peacefully on our back porch with a cup of chamomile tea. Her voice was completely frantic as she ordered me, to make David save Greg's company at all costs. I let her speak until she finally wore herself out. Then I replied with complete calm. My family is my husband, and the people who actually showed up to support our union, I said evenly. You told me a 2-hour drive was too exhausting to support me. So you'll completely understand that walking into my husband's office to ask him to compromise his firm's integrity for a man who couldn't even bother to RSVP to our wedding is simply far too exhausting for me. Then I hung up. I blocked their numbers. I ended every single connection with the people who had treated me like an afterthought my entire life. 3 months later, Greg's startup filed for bankruptcy. My parents drained their retirement savings to bail out Chloe's mortgage and prevent her from losing her house. I learned an essential truth through all of this. Blood does not require submission. Sharing a last name does not bind you to people who only value you for what you can provide them. The best response to this kind of treatment isn't revenge. It's peace. The quiet, untroubled peace of building a full, meaningful life while those who ignored you stand outside the gates, realizing far too late that they can never reclaim their place inside.